He was supposed to be invincible. The man who dodged bullets as Neo, who survived impossible vengeance as John Wick. But then came the sound that changed everything. A sickening crack that echoed through a film set, followed by 3 words that sent Hollywood into panic. Keanu is down. What happened next revealed a truth that fans weren't ready to face. At 60, the legend who had given his body to cinema was finally being forced to confront his own mortality. And the confession he made afterward about John Wick 5 will break your heart. It wasn't even supposed to be dangerous. Keanu Reeves was filming the comedy Good Fortune with Aziz Ansari when disaster struck in the most mundane way possible. He tripped over a rug in his trailer while shuffling his feet to warm up after a cold plunge scene. The crack his knee made was so loud that Keanu later described it as sounding like a potato chip breaking. Director Aziz Ansari recalls hearing crew members frantically radioing, "Keanu's down. Keanu's down," as if their worst nightmare had come true. But what happened next was pure Keanu. He came and filmed a scene right after the fall with his knee still bleeding. Poor guy, he was such a trooper, and he fractured his kneecap and continued to do all the scenes, Ansari said, adding that he actually is an angel. He's been pretending to be human for all these other roles. This wasn't just another injury. It was a wake-up call that even the most dedicated warrior has limits. He managed to film everything except some salsa dancing scenes, but insiders say the recovery has been tougher than expected. The man who once seemed untouchable was learning that time defeats every hero eventually. For someone who had built his legend on never giving up, never using stunt doubles when he could help it, this moment represented something deeper than physical pain. It was the universe's way of whispering that even Neo can't dodge Father Time forever. While his body began showing its battle scars, something unexpected happened. In 2019, when Keanu stepped onto a red carpet with artist Alexandra Grant, the world witnessed something rare. A man who had carried grief for decades, finally allowing himself to be vulnerable again. Their story began not with Hollywood glamour, but with art. 7 years of quiet collaboration on book projects had evolved into something deeper. The pair first went public with their relationship in November 2019 at the LACMA Art Plus Film Gala, and what struck everyone was how natural they looked together. No staged poses, no desperate attention-seeking, just 2 people who had found peace in each other's presence. Recent sightings have sparked engagement rumors after Grant was spotted wearing a diamond ring on her left hand during various public appearances, though neither has confirmed anything officially. That's typical Keanu, letting his life unfold naturally rather than performing it for cameras. What makes this love story remarkable isn't the romance itself, but what it represents. For a man who lost his unborn daughter Ava on Christmas Eve 1999, then lost Jennifer Syme in a car crash 18 months later, finding love again at 60 feels like a miracle. Alexandra represents something Keanu thought he'd never have again, a future worth believing in. Friends describe their relationship as grounded in mutual respect and shared creativity. She doesn't need him to be a movie star. He doesn't need her to be anything other than herself. It's the kind of love that survives because it asks nothing of fame and everything of the heart. To understand why Keanu's current happiness feels so profound, you need to know the darkness he climbed out of. His story begins with abandonment so complete it would break most people. When Keanu was just 2 years old, his father Samuel vanished without explanation, leaving behind only silence and questions that would never be answered. His mother Patricia tried her best, moving the family from Beirut to Sydney to New York to Toronto, seeking stability that always seemed just out of reach. Each move brought new stepfathers who never stayed long enough to matter. New schools where Keanu had to prove himself over and over again. By his teens, he had attended 4 different high schools, battling dyslexia while trying to fit into classrooms that changed faster than seasons. Hockey became his sanctuary. As a goalkeeper nicknamed The Wall, Keanu found the first real identity of his life. He dreamed of Olympic glory, of finally having something that couldn't be taken away. Then, at 15, a knee injury, eerily foreshadowing his recent struggles, ended those dreams in a single moment of torn cartilage. That devastating blow inadvertently opened the door to his destiny. With sports no longer an option, Keanu drifted toward acting, initially as therapy for a boy who had learned to hide pain behind performance. The abandoned child who never knew security found it in the controlled chaos of film sets, where stories had endings and heroes always found their way home. The early 1990s should have been Keanu's golden years, but Hollywood had cruel lessons waiting. The darkest came through his friendship with River Phoenix, a bond that transcended typical co-star relationships. These were two young men from fractured homes who recognized themselves in each other's wounded eyes. River was everything Keanu wasn't: fire to his ice, chaos to his calm. On the set of My Own Private Idaho, they created something electric, a brotherhood that felt unbreakable. They talked about growing old together, about the films they would make, about proving that damaged kids could become something beautiful. Then came October 31st, 1993. River collapsed outside the Viper Room and never got up again. At 23, one of cinema's brightest talents was extinguished by a lethal combination that stopped his heart on a sidewalk. For Keanu, it wasn't just the loss of a friend. It was the violent theft of his chosen brother, the person who understood his darkness better than anyone. Those who knew him say he disappeared for weeks afterward, emerging hollow-eyed and forever changed. River's death became Keanu's first lesson in survivor's guilt. The cruel question of why fate spares some while claiming others. Every subsequent success felt haunted by River's absence. Every standing ovation echoed with applause that should have been shared. The loss taught him that talent and youth offer no protection against life's cruelty, a lesson that would prove devastatingly relevant when tragedy struck again. Years later, when Jennifer Syme entered his life, Keanu dared to believe that healing was possible. Their connection was immediate and profound, two damaged souls finding solace in shared scars. When Jennifer became pregnant with their daughter Ava, Keanu glimpsed a future that might finally quiet the ghosts of his past. He prepared for fatherhood with the devotion of someone who understood how precious family could be. For a man who had grown up without a father, who had learned early that love could vanish without warning, Jennifer and Ava represented redemption, a chance to build the stability he had never known. Then came Christmas Eve, 1999, and the silence that followed Ava's stillborn arrival. The nursery they had prepared stood empty, filled with clothes that would never be worn and dreams that would never breathe. 18 months later, Jennifer's car accident stole his second chance at happiness, leaving Keanu to carry a grief so profound that words couldn't contain it. The man who had lost his father, his best friend, and now his daughter, learned that love, no matter how pure, offered no immunity from devastation. Grief changes shape, but it never ends, he would later say, words that carried the weight of lived experience. While Hollywood watched Keanu ascend to superstardom as Neo, few knew about the private battle consuming his nights. His sister Kim had been diagnosed with leukemia, and suddenly, the man who could dodge bullets on screen found himself powerless against an enemy he couldn't fight. Hospital corridors became as familiar as film sets. By day, fans screamed his name at premieres. By night, he whispered prayers in treatment rooms, holding Kim's hand through chemotherapy sessions that drained her body while strengthening their bond. He quietly purchased a home near her treatment center, rearranged filming schedules without explanation, and turned down lucrative roles to be present for appointments that meant everything to her and nothing to studio executives. The experience carved humility deeper into a man already marked by loss. All his fame, all his fortune couldn't take away her pain or guarantee her survival. When Kim eventually reached remission, Keanu's gratitude transformed into action. He quietly established a foundation funding children's hospitals and cancer research, donating millions without attaching his name to the gifts. It wasn't charity for recognition, it was tribute to every doctor and nurse who had stood beside his family when standing meant everything. Kim's survival wasn't just her triumph, it was his proof that sometimes, if you love hard enough and never give up, the good guys actually win. The mathematics of action cinema are brutal and exact. For decades, Keanu turned his body into a weapon for art, and now the bill was coming due. The Matrix required spinal surgery after wire work twisted his frame until doctors warned of potential paralysis. Most actors would have retreated to safer roles. Instead, Keanu returned to training while still wearing a neck brace, transforming rehabilitation into preparation for the next impossible sequence. John Wick elevated the punishment to art form. The gunplay required thousands of hours of firearms training until his trigger finger moved with mechanical precision. The hand-to-hand combat left bruises that became his daily uniform, while car sequences at breakneck speeds rattled every joint in his aging frame. By Chapter 4, the physical cost was carved into his walk, a subtle limp that spoke of knees worn down by decades of impacts no human body was designed to absorb. The recent good fortune injury, where his kneecap cracked like a potato chip, wasn't just another accident. It was time itself announcing its victory over even the most determined warrior. At 60, the man who had given his body to cinema was finally forced to listen to its protests. Yet what's remarkable isn't the damage, but his response to it. Keanu doesn't rage against aging or deny his limitations. Instead, he adapts with the grace of someone who understands that wisdom sometimes means knowing when to step back. His recent training focuses on sustainability over intensity, treating his body like a vintage car, valuable enough to maintain but too precious to abuse. Behind the headlines lies a more mysterious story about money and its meaning in Keanu's life. Conservative estimates place his net worth around $380 million, though the true figure remains deliberately obscured by a man who treats wealth as a tool rather than a trophy. The stories of his generosity have become legend. He famously gave away millions from the Matrix sequels to the special effects and costume teams, recognizing that his performance was only one element in a collaborative masterpiece. When John Wick wrapped, he surprised the stunt team with Rolex watches and motorcycles. Not calculated PR moves, but spontaneous expressions of gratitude from someone who remembers what struggle feels like. His charitable giving extends far beyond publicized donations. Sources describe a pattern of anonymous contributions to causes that touched his life, particularly cancer research and children's hospitals. He doesn't want credit, because credit isn't the point. The point is action. Wealth deployed where it can do the most good. Perhaps most tellingly, he lives well, but not ostentatiously, finding joy in subway rides and motorcycle rides rather than private jets and luxury yachts. The man who could afford any luxury seems most comfortable with simplicity, proving that true wealth isn't what you have, but how lightly you carry it. As Keanu approaches another year of life, the question of what comes next feels more urgent than ever. His upcoming projects represent a deliberate shift toward less physically demanding roles, suggesting a man making peace with the limitations age has imposed. The specter of John Wick 5 looms over every interview. Fans desperate for another chapter, while insurance companies calculate the risks of an aging star doing his own stunts. His recent admissions about physical limitations suggest the franchise may need to evolve or end, a decision that will define his legacy as much as any performance. Does the character retire gracefully, or does the actor? Which choice honors the fans who made both possible? Behind the speculation lies a more personal transformation. The man who once seemed perpetually restless now radiates contentment, his relationship with Alexandra Grant providing stability he's never known. Their artistic collaborations hint at a future where creativity doesn't require physical punishment, where stories can be told through different mediums. Perhaps most importantly, Keanu seems to be making peace with his own mortality. Not morbidly, but realistically. The injuries pile up, recovery takes longer, and the next role might be the last that demands everything his body has to give. Yet instead of desperation, there's acceptance. the wisdom of someone who has already given more to his craft than most dare attempt. His legacy isn't dependent on one more film or franchise. It's already written in the scars he carries and the hearts he's touched. The man who taught us that grief changes shape, but never ends, is now teaching us something else entirely. That legends don't have to burn out to be remembered. They can simply choose to step back while the applause still echoes, leaving behind not just great performances, but the example of how to age with dignity in a youth-obsessed industry. Whether John Wick returns or not, whether Neo dodges more bullets or not, the legend is already complete. It's written not just in box office records, but in quiet kindness shown to strangers, anonymous donations that saved lives, and proof that in a cynical industry, genuine goodness can still shine through. What more could we ask from one man? The answer, like Keanu himself, is beautifully simple. Nothing. He's already given us everything. If this journey through Hollywood's most beloved legend moved you, smash that like button and tell us in the comments. What aspect of Keanu's story hits closest to home? Have you ever had to watch your body betray your dreams? Subscribe and ring that notification bell to join us as we explore more lives that prove resilience and authenticity can triumph over any tragedy life delivers.